It's been over a year since I've done my first Wayward Realms video, and since then I've only done one other apart from this video, as there hasn't really been too much to talk about outside of speculation topics. A couple of days ago, Oncelost Games dropped a new video called the Wayward Realms Devlog 1 World Generation Systems, and this presentation includes some pre-alpha footage which I am going to go over in today's video. But first I'd like to give you a quick summary of what this game is. The first Wayward Realms teaser trailer was released back in August of 2021. It basically seemed to serve as the official announcement of this game's development. It was a rather generic CGI trailer that wasn't all that impressive, nor did it really tell us much apart from the horses of the world having really damn strong backs. Holy shit. Now at the end of the trailer, you watch as the camera pans out to show viewers a massive, vast world. And this massive open world is going to be one of the game's biggest selling points, and it actually already is in terms of getting people interested. Now, a massive open world doesn't necessarily equate to a quality experience though. In fact, many times it means the opposite. But along with the trailer, actually technically before it, we also learned that the main devs behind this game are some of the OG devs from the old classic Elder Scrolls games. Julian LeFay, Ted Peterson, and Vijay Lakshman, all of whom played monumental roles in the Elder Scrolls Arena and Daggerfall. These devs are calling their new studio Oncelost Games. The footage that you're seeing now is from their A Lullaby cinematic trailer, which they released around 7 months ago. So the Wayward Realms is planned to be an open-world first-person fantasy RPG, where choice, consequence, and role-playing will be experienced like never before in a realistically scaled open world in a new class of game that Oncelost is calling the Grand RPG. Oncelost is planning to take procedural generation to a whole new level and bring to us a massive open fantasy world that is, in quotation marks, way bigger than most other games you can think of. In this game, there will be a virtual game master that reacts to your actions, and no two players will have the exact same experience. Some players may play a thief entrenched in underground conspiracies, and their experience and the way that the world reacts to them will be very different from another player who may play more like a socializing aristocrat. In terms of character development, there will be no predetermined classes, so to say, but instead your character class will be of your own design. And there will even be customized skills and abilities that allow us to craft our own spells, potions, and enchantments. On top of all this, the game seems like it's going to have a heavy focus on lore, and discovering more about the world while you play will be an important part of the experience for players that enjoy that type of aspect of a game. If you would like a deeper dive into the topics that I just mentioned, I'll leave a link below to my most recent Wayward Realms video. But now it's time to jump into the new stuff, their World Generation Systems video.
Hi, I'm Julian LeFay, the creator of the Elder Scrolls Arena and Daggerfall, games that establish new precedents, both procedural generation and scope of open world games.
If you're not familiar with the Elder Scrolls Arena and Daggerfall, both of those games used procedural generation at the core of their game development. While there is some fixed content, or should I say handcrafted content, such as the main quest dungeons and some of the basic city layouts, the overall world, the forests, mountains, side quests, other dungeons, shop names, and even the NPCs that you meet on the street, and more, are all created by a procedural generation system. This is what Oncelost is doing with the Wayward Realms, but the technology has greatly improved since the 90s when those two games came out.
I'm thrilled today to share some of the exciting systems we're working on to help bring our vision for the Wayward Realms to a new era, leveraging the power of modern tools, especially Unreal Engine. First, our procedural generation systems. From a living landscape reflecting a natural creation process covering 200,000 square kilometers,
covering 200,000 square kilometers. To put that in perspective, Skyrim is around 37 square kilometers. Now, although Bethesda did use procedural generation for a good amount of Skyrim's base landscape, much of the content is handcrafted. 37 square kilometers isn't small for a game, especially a game that has so much handcrafted elements to it. The Wayward Realms in terms of world size is going to be 5,405 Skyrim maps. This is taking procedural generation to the max, and whether or not this will be a good thing for the game, we'll of course have to wait and see, but I gotta say, it is exciting to think about. Now, the Elder Scrolls Daggerfall was 209,000 square kilometers, and it took one brave player 64 hours, 54 minutes, and 14 seconds to run across the entire map. A lot of the map is of course pretty damn boring, but you would hope that the lead devs from these successful games, accompanied with 30 plus years of technological advancement, would be able to make drastic improvements from the Daggerfall days. There's a lot of crappy procedural generation out there in the gaming world, but there's also a lot of crappy non-procedurally generated games. I think what it comes down to is the quality of the procedural generation systems and how much time the devs are willing to spend on creating a sufficient amount of unique assets to be used in the system itself.
Down to buildings with a wide variety of layout, styles, textures, and degradation.
He said a wide variety of layout, styles, textures, and degradation, but unfortunately we didn't really see much variety to prove that. Hopefully in the future, as the game further develops, we can see some better examples. That is still the first time that we've seen a first-person perspective of what will essentially be the player running through a building. For a pre-alpha, it doesn't look too bad.
And going down further still, to the dungeons, equally varied, featuring multi-leveled layouts that can be generated at runtime using a combination of techniques, all emulating the mind of a human creator.
Julian said that these dungeons can be generated at runtime, so the dungeon is not actually in the game until you get close to it, which of course makes sense in a game of this scale, but as a player running around you would never know. Over on Twitter, someone asked a great question, and they asked oncelost if all players will have the same world as each other, or will each player's world be different. oncelost replied by saying everyone gets the same world. So now we know that as you play, the world itself will not be RNG procedural generation for each player. The RNG procedural generation will have been completed before players step foot into the world, and all players will enter the same world. With that said though, each player will of course be taking different paths, and their unique actions will affect the world around them uniquely. And I would guess that this would proc procedural generation systems in other ways outside of landscape design, such as quests. This would effectively make each player's experience very different from one another, but everyone is still operating in the same world. Have a look at some more first-person pre-alpha footage.
Working together in unison, these systems and many more will create a role-playing experience that will exceed expectations.
Obviously, the game is in a very incomplete state, but I gotta admit that the kick and the breaking skeleton animation were pretty good. This is the first clip of combat that we've ever seen, and I already feel like I'm ready to jump into the game and smash up some skellies. I don't know if it was a good idea for Julian to say we're creating a role-playing experience that will exceed expectations, because people don't forget stuff like that, and if this game ends up flopping, or even if it just ends up being okay, exceed expectations will be quoted for years to come, and no one will trust these devs in the future. But I guess I do admire the confidence, and my god do I hope that they are right. I'm choosing to stay optimistic with this one. I like the devs, I like the lore that they're establishing, and I feel like these guys have more of an old school philosophy for RPG creation, but they're wielding powerful modern day technology. I really like that combination. If you ended up enjoying this video and would like more Wayward Realms content or RPG content in general, I appreciate you hitting that subscribe button, and I will leave links to my previous Wayward Realms videos if you guys would like to jump into some more nuanced details of the game. Catch you on the next one.